area, but in a home that should have been condemned. And for 18 months, I struggled. I struggled emotionally, I struggled financially, I had no direction, I had no self-esteem, because when I left my husband, he said to me, "You'll never amount to anything and I have no respect for you." It took me a long time to be able to say those words, and to be able to say them, letting go of how it used to make me feel. So you can imagine that where I was in my life was not a good place. And then something happened that changed all of that. It was what we call a paradigm shift, and all of you will have, again, paradigm shifts at some stage in your life. Something that will take you from where you think today to boom, thinking completely differently, and it happens in a split second. And my paradigm shift came on a very miserable, wet morning. The postman had been, he'd dropped 4 envelopes on the doormats. I'd taken the kids to school in my car that was probably illegal. I was struggling. I couldn't put the heat on because I couldn't afford the electricity. It was just a tough time. This is not a sob story. It is what I call a success story, because we all start from somewhere to get to where we want to be. And we need something that precipitates us forward. But it was when I opened those 4 letters that everything changed. Because the first letter was from the electricity board, and they sent me a bill for £150 electricity bill, and I haven't got £150. The second one was for the insurance on my car. I looked out the window and I looked at my car and I thought, it's not worth insuring. The third one was a letter from my landlord saying that he wanted to put the rent up. And I looked at the house I was living in and I thought, you want to put the rent up on this? But it was the 4th one that did it. The 4th one was my paradigm shift. There was a letter from the school inviting me to send the boys on a school trip, and it was £130 per child, and I didn't have £130, and I had to say no to my kids, and every other kid went and mine didn't. And that's the paradigm shift. That was the moment I said, enough. Something has to change. And isn't it funny that when we make the decision that something has to change, and I mean really make it, not just, oh, I'll try tomorrow, I'll try next week, I'll do something different, when I feel like it. I mean, that paradigm shift, it hits you like a ton of bricks when you say, enough. I am not prepared to live a life of quiet desperation anymore. Isn't it funny how the universe rearranges itself? An opportunity and circumstance and people come into your life, and you recognize them for the way they've come into your life, and you take action. 2 things happened as a result of me having that paradigm shift within the next 4 to 5 months. The first one was I met John. What a lucky man. And the second one was that we came across forever. And as Anne said, through the product. And life has been sweet ever since. Not without its ups and downs. Success is not an easy road. Success is not an easy road. You are going to grow and develop and become more than you ever thought possible, every single one of you. Because as I stand here today and I share my life and I say the things that we've done and achieved and the life we live now, I never thought that was possible on day one. And the reason on day one we don't think things are possible are because of the conditioning that we've had over the years that makes us think we're not worthy, we're not capable. People like us don't have things like that. Know your place. Stay in your box. We're conditioned to think like that. And I'll cover that in a bit more detail later. So when I came in touch with Forever, I realised there were endless possibilities of where we could go, both personally and with a team of people. And a magical journey started. And as I say, not without its ups and downs. Was it tough? Yes. Has it been tough? Yeah. Is it still tough at times? Hell yeah, of course it is. Just because you're a diamond manager does not make it any easier. Was it worth it? Every single moment of every day, of every week, of every month, and I wouldn't have changed a single thing. So how come we build a business such as the one we have today? You know, it's interesting, isn't it, when you look at our industry, our opportunity with Forever, we all have the same product. We all have the same marketing model. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. We will all have the same challenges, ultimately, in one way, shape, or form or another. But isn't it interesting how some people never quite get there, and others do? Why do you think that is? Maybe. I think there's a lot of things that contribute towards the answer to that question. But one of the things I think is fundamental in your success is your ability to understand the goal-setting process. It's not just about setting a goal, it's understanding the whole process that surrounds that goal, that surrounds that want, that need that you have inside you, that has to be fulfilled, the things that have to be achieved, and it's understanding the process around it. And that's what I want to talk a little bit about today, if I can. So the first thing you have to understand when you set any meaningful goals is that you hold the key. You and nobody else holds the key to your success. And once you understand that, accept it, internalize it, that it is, all of it is down to you. You can have external input, you can have uplines, downlines, sidelines, you can have mentors, you can have friends, you can have all these people feeding into your success, your goal, but ultimately, you hold the key. It is your responsibility. Interestingly, when people very, very first start the process of defining what's important to them, they focus more on what they don't want than what they do want. Isn't that interesting? We also know that what you think about, what becomes your dominant thought, what goes on in here, invariably comes to be. So if we're focusing on the things that we don't want all the time, rather than defining, designing, creating what we do want, then immediately the goal-setting process is tainted. And that's what I meant when I said to you, you've got to look at the whole process, not just the goal. So you have to understand that we have to start thinking right before we can even set out on the journey. And if we think about the way we think about what we don't want, and I was typical of that, I fell into that trap. I don't want to be broke anymore. I don't want to drive a broke-mobile car anymore. I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want the other. That's all I was thinking about, what I don't want. And wasn't it interesting that in my life to that moment, everything that I had was what I didn't want? That's an interesting thought, isn't it? Everything in my life at that moment was what I didn't want. Maybe, in some strange way, I had kind of manifested that in some strange way. They do say that wherever we are in our life, everything that we have today is a result of all our past thinking and actions. And the first time I ever heard that, I was offended by it. I said, you can't tell me that where I am today is because of a decision I made 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 5 minutes ago. And the psychologist I was talking to said, yes, I can, because it's true. And I said, so you telling me that I'm broke, and I'm this and that and the other, it's my fault? She said, if you're brave enough to accept it, yes. And that was a hard one to take on board, because none of us like to think about where we are is down to our actions and our thoughts, do we? We like to blame other people, don't we? We do. It's nature. It's his fault. It's her fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. And every time we point the finger of blame, 3 fingers point right back at us. And this is about accepting that we hold the key to the secret of our success. Sometimes, when you first start talking to people about what they really want, they don't know. They're so bogged down in life and having to cope with situations and challenges and everything that they don't actually know. They'll tell you what you want to hear. Very often they don't know. If anybody in this room is struggling, and I mean really struggling, to internalise something that is important to them, that they're prepared to work for, then I suggest you just write down this one word as a starting point. And that is happiness. To be happy. And when you're setting your own goals, or more importantly as leaders, because that's what every one of you are in this room, you are a leader. You are a leader because you have joined an industry whereby you will build your income based on recruiting other people, therefore you've been defined as a leader. It's not just about you. It's about how you help people in your team set their goals. And a great starting point is to be happy. Around that, you can define what happiness means to each and every person. Another good point to think about when you consider that you hold the key to your success is, what is your mental state? What's your mental state when you registered on the application form? You're probably thinking, what is she talking about? And here's what I'm talking about. When you registered with Forever, did you join to give it a go, to see if it would work, or did you join to be successful? And that is a major, major paradigm shift just in its own statement. Did you join to give it a go, see if it would work, or did you join to be successful? Interestingly, either of those two thoughts, again, will define your outcome ultimately. Easy to quit when you join to give it a go. You'll never quit if your true mental state is, I've joined to be successful. You need to have a desire. Having a desire around your goal is massively important. Again, now we get back to defining what's important to you by really looking at what you do want, what you're prepared to work for, what you're prepared to put your heart and soul into, what you're prepared to work long days, get up early in the morning, stay up late at night for. You need to have a goal that is so emotionally linked to you that the very thought of not achieving it can quite literally move you emotionally. And sometimes I say to people, if you could only have one goal in the whole wide world, what would it be? If you could only ever achieve one thing, what would it be? Again, a good starting point. I know when I first joined Forever, I had two major goals. The first one was to earn more in a month than my ex-husband earns in a year. And the second one was to educate my children privately. Now here's the thing. Sometimes we have a vision of what we want to achieve, but we have not defined it. And that was me. I wanted to educate my children privately. But in the back of my mind, there was the doubt. And because there was doubt in the back of my mind as to whether it would ever happen, because I wasn't making enough money to put the kids into private school, because it was a lot of money and I wasn't making a lot of money in my job. It was therefore a dream, but it was a dream without content. What do I mean by that? It means I had no idea what school it was going to be. I had no idea the actual cost of it. I didn't know about the uniforms. I didn't know about anything. I just wanted my kids in private school. Now here's the thing. Just that statement on its own was not enough. And I remember very clearly, my upline, and I thank him every single day for sharing this opportunity with me. But a bit like Andrew, I was a complete self-starter. And I think I only ever had 4 meetings with him. And I think in those 4 meetings, we probably didn't really see eye to eye anyway. But I remember him driving all the way from Pinchbeck in Spalding. Anybody live in Pinchbeck? Oh, good. What? Oh, did a hand go up at the back? Oh, it's a lovely place. Amazing place. At the time we lived in Milton Keynes, and to get from Pinchbeck to Milton Keynes was not an easy journey. And I remember very specifically that Chris had arranged to come and do a morning's sort of day's work in between kids at school. So we had to get up very early, sort of about 4 o'clock in the morning, to get over to us, to be there at 9 o'clock when I dropped the kids off to school. And I remember coming home, drawing up on the driveway. As I drew up on the driveway, Chris drew up behind me, jumped out of the car, he was full of energy, very, very excited. And he said, "Oh, I can't wait to work today, Jane. Now then, I know you've got lots and lots planned for me." And I was thinking in my heart, yep, got lots planned. And he said, "And all that homework that I asked you to do, I know you've done it all." I'm thinking, yep, done it all. And he came in and he sat down, he said, "Right, put the kettle on," he said, "Have a cup of coffee." He said, "What time's the first person coming for a meeting?" And I just kind of looked at him and I went, whew. He said, "No, come on, quickly, what time are they coming? I want to be prepared, tell me a bit about them." One-to-one, that's what we had in those days, a one-to-one. I said, "Well, I said, I've been so busy, Chris, I've got kids." And he went, "What do you mean you've been busy?" He said, "Have we not got 4 or 5 one-to-ones booked today?" He said, "That's what we planned." I went, "Well, I've been so busy." And he went, "Jane, what time is the first person coming?" And I went, "Well, there isn't anybody coming today." And he said, "I've just driven 4 hours to get here, and there's nobody coming." I went, "Well," and I tried to make my excuses. And he said, "Okay, fine." So he said, "Okay, let's have a goal-setting session. Did you work on your goals? Did you define them, work on them? Did you do everything I asked you to do?" And I went, "Chris, I don't need to write down goals, they're all in my head." And he shut his book, and he got up and he walked out, and he said, "Bye." He said, "I thought you were going to be somebody special in this business." Now, what would you do? Think about it. What would you do if you're with your upline, and they came to work with you, and they suddenly closed their book like that and said, "Bye, I thought you were going to be somebody special, I'm out of here." What would you do? You'd probably do exactly what I did. I burst into tears, started snivelling, and felt very sorry for myself. I went upstairs, I looked in the mirror, I washed my face, and I thought, I don't like what I'm seeing. I'm seeing somebody looking back in the mirror who is not focused, who's not done what they need to do to be successful. And that's when I changed. You see, I did have a goal. I wanted my kids in private school, but I was scared to define it. Because what if I failed? That evening, when John came home, I said to him, "I'm going to go to see the school this week. I'm going to make an appointment with their headmaster." And off I went to Bedford Boys School. I chose that school because it's one of the top sporting schools in the UK. When I arrived at this school, I felt so intimidated. It was unbelievable. When I met the headmaster and he came down in his gown and his stuff, I felt even more intimidated. I loved what I was seeing. When I got the prospectus and saw how much it was going to cost, but what the kids could do, I fell in love with it, but I was terrified. Could I achieve the kind of income needed to put them into that school? Then the letter came through, inviting the boys to go and sit their entrance exam. We're in the process, I can't deny them. I took them to the school, the 2-hour entrance exam, and then the rest of the day was all theirs to enjoy all the facilities. And I will never forget this moment, ever, ever, dropping them off in my Brokemobile, hiding it round the corner so no one could see it, where all the other Range Rovers and Porsches and Mercedes and big mother cars were coming in, and my little car was round the corner. And I remember going back that evening, it was about 4:30, and my youngest son, he was 9 at the time, he came running out and he put his hand in my hand and he said, "Mummy, I really want to come to this school." And it was boom, the emotional connection, so deeply ingrained into me, because you know something, I looked down at his face and I thought, I will not deny you that. And I went to work. That was in the February. By the September term that year, 20 boys were in that school. How deeply ingrained is your desire for something that is so important to you that you will do whatever it takes? You will work every day, every night, every hour. You will sacrifice, you will give up for that ultimate goal. If you are not connected to it enough like that, then this will not be an incredible journey for you. You've got to know why you're doing it. It's got to be emotional. It's got to move you. You've got to be connected to it. You've got to believe the goal is achievable. Sometimes we have to admit that we have to change our thinking in order to be successful. There is an old saying, isn't there? If you carry on doing what you're doing today, you're only going to get more of what you've got next week, next year. So we have to change our thinking. And to do that, we have to understand that changing our thinking is a choice. It's up to you. You can either change your thinking onto a path of finding out all you need to find out in order to be successful, or you can bring all your old thoughts and ways, and very often negative thoughts, with you into this amazing industry, but nothing will change. You see, I stand here today a very different person to the one I was at the beginning of the year. And the one that was standing on the stage at the beginning of the year is very different to the one that was on the stage a year ago. And if I look at myself now compared to the girl who joined forever, it's completely poles apart. John loves it. He gets a new wife every 6 months. So one of the things that you need to think about when you think about your goal setting is your belief, your internal belief patterns. How you think about yourself, how you think about your journey, the decisions that you make. We're conditioned in life by society, by the press, by the TV, by well-meaning friends, loved ones, parents, husbands, wives, brothers, sisters. We're conditioned on our journey to adulthood to be careful, to know our place, to not to step out and do something out of the ordinary. You think about the world we live in right now, there's a lot of doom and gloom, isn't there? There's doom and gloom in the papers, there's doom and gloom in the world around us. You turn on the television and any of you even dare to tell me that you watch those things called soaps. All you're doing is conditioning yourself for more doom and gloom. Because what we read, we see, we hear, that feeds this, we determine where we end up. And if we're not feeding ourselves with positive information, with information that will grow us and develop us, then everything in our life will stay the same. So one of the things I think you all have to do when you start out on this journey in forever is to act as if. And when I say act as if, I mean look into the company to your role models. And I'm going to say something now that may be a bit controversial. But I want you to choose your role models wisely. But look to your role models. How do they behave? How do they project themselves? How do they work with their teams? Are they living a life that you aspire to lead and live? Are they managers, senior managers, story managers? Are they great examples? And if they are, model that. It doesn't mean to say you need to be arrogant, but the minute that you join forever, you're not just an FBO. As far as I'm concerned, all of you are trainee millionaires. So act as if. How would that trainee millionaire behave? Think about that. Just think about that. just an ordinary FBO. You're an extraordinary person on the way to achieving all your goals and dreams. And the starting point is trainee millionaire. You need to write your goals down. Everything needs to be written. I fell into that mistake of thinking I didn't need to write anything down. I was lazy in that respect. And I thought, if I've heard it before, I don't need to write it down again. And that's wrong as well. But everything needs to be taken from here and put onto paper. You need to have clearly written down and specific goals. Imagine if there were no limitations in your life right now. Imagine if your life was ideal, perfect. Where would you be living? Where would you be living right now if your life was perfect? That's a good starting point, isn't it? What kind of home would you have? What kind of material possessions would you have? What kind of car would you drive? Where would your children be in school? What kind of holidays would you have? Who would you be mixing with? What would you want for your family, your friends, your loved ones? Think about that and write it down. Once you've written down the things that you want in your life to make it ideal, then you need to put visual images around it. Once you've written the goal down, you need to determine the starting point. You need to look at where you are today in relation to what you want to achieve. If you want to work on becoming completely debt-free, then you need a plan going forward on how to achieve that. A big trap that people fall into is they look at their past performance and they base their future on what they haven't achieved to date. And I see this all the time. I see people writing down goals every single year that they've never achieved, but they write them down every year because they think they should, but in their mind they're saying, I won't achieve them because I haven't done to date. What I would suggest you do is make your goal fresh. Even if it is a goal to say become a senior manager, a story manager, and you haven't yet achieved it, change the goal around a bit. Forget the senior manager, but focus on chairman's bonus. Because on focusing on chairman's bonus, senior manager will come. So if you've been writing a goal down year after year after year after year, month after month, week after week, and it hasn't happened, change it round. Look for something different that inspires you, that will incorporate the goal you've not yet got on the way. It's really interesting when you get this. I'll give you an idea. I remember we got stuck at Diamond Sapphire. We got stuck at Diamond Sapphire. Not a bad place to get stuck, I guess. Making about 20-25K, but we were stuck. And I kept setting the goal. We were stuck for about 2 or 3 years. I kept setting the goal, setting the goal, setting the goal. And in my mind, I was setting the goal, but thinking, oh, I didn't achieve it last month. Didn't achieve it the month before, didn't achieve it the month before, and it was becoming setting the goal for the point of setting a goal. Writing it down for the point of writing it down. And then, one day I was in a planning meeting with Chris Goldsborough, and Chris turned around to me and she said one thing, and everything changed. She said, Jayne, I went, yep. She said, I'm sick and tired of having enough diamonds to diamond sapphire. Well, excuse me. She said, I'm bored of you being a diamond sapphire. I want a diamond in that as my outline. She went, really? She went, yep. I went home. I said to John, you know what Chris just said to me today? Is she sick and tired of having me as a diamond sapphire? I said, upright. And John looks at me and says, it's fine, what are we going to do about it? 2 months later, we got a diamond. Now it's really interesting. The people that we should have worked with were there all the time, but in my mind I was stuck. I didn't determine what I needed to do there and then, and where it was going to take me in 2 months' time. So I determined a new starting point with an impending event. And the impending event was a rally coming up. And if I made diamond in the next 2 months, I could be recognised by reps at the rally. If not, I would have had to wait a whole year. So I determined the starting point, which was right there on that day. And my impending event was in August, which was 2.5 months later. And what was really interesting, the girl that took us to Diamond has said no to me for 7 years in forever. You have to know what your starting point is, what the impending event is, and what you're prepared to go to work for. Okay? It's not just writing a goal as Diamond Manager. You've got to really bring that into now, right now. How many people in this room want to be manager by the end of this year? Okay, now, is that a realistic goal? Is that a goal that can happen, or is it a goal that you're going to write down, but ultimately, actually, you've only got one person in your team? So maybe you could say, well, if I'm being realistic, and I'm not talking about negative realism, I'm talking about thinking outside the box. I'm talking about saying, pushing for manager with one person in your team, probably between now and the end of December, could be a bit of a challenge. Not for all of you, but maybe for 1 or 2 of you. Wouldn't it be better to say, my starting point is right now to go to manager, but I'm going to do it in March, and I'm going to bring somebody straight up behind me. So when I go manager in March, I've got a manager coming up behind me 1 month later, and therefore next year I'll be structured the chairman's bonus. That is a better way of looking at the goal. And that's why you need to understand goal setting. Sometimes it's not one thing in isolation, it's about thinking bigger than that one goal. So for every one of you in this room right now who has the potential to go manager in the next 2-3 months, I'd be thinking about going manager with a manager. And then all of you, next year, can do chairman's bonus. That means all of you will be going off somewhere amazing around the world to pick up your chairman's bonus check and cigarettes. Who'd like that? Yeah? Then it needs to be in this goal-setting exercise that we're doing. Well, how much time have I got? Oh, right, okay. No, we'll talk about it. I'm sure you've got some great other speakers. Really think why you want the goal. Very, very important. If you've only got one reason why you want a goal, it won't come to be. You need to have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 reasons why you want to achieve the goal that's important to you. You need to be feeding that goal from all different areas. Why did I want to build the house of my dreams? It wasn't just I wanted to build my own home. The detail that went into building my own home was incredible. I knew, for example, that when I built my home, I didn't want cheap DIY fittings. Although I have to tell you a little story. It's always been a dream, no cheap DIY fittings. But it's always been a dream of mine from a little girl that one day I'd build my own home. And I had this vision it would be in the country, it would have stables, it would have... I had all this vision, and when I finally found the property that I was going to develop, it was awful. It was falling down, it didn't have a roof on it, it was a big old barn, it didn't even have planning permission, it was pretty grim. It took me 2 years to fight with the planners to get the planning permission. Then we found an architect, and when he gave us the drawings, I had to get rid of him because he didn't capture my vision of keeping the home in integrity of being next to a 300-year-old farmhouse, but being contemporary with light and bright and glass and oak and space. And eventually I got an architect who caught my vision, and I remember when I talk about the detail and create your ideal future, I remember one day spending £100,000 on this barn, and I remember standing up in the field looking at it and crying. And I thought, I've spent £100,000 on this barn, all I've got is 4 walls. I didn't even have a roof. You think, why so much? Because we had to dig out the foundations, repoint every single piece of stone that had been laid 300 years earlier, just to get it to a position of putting a roof on. And I nearly quit, because that was a lot of money. But then I thought about all the things I wanted in this home. I thought about the handcrafted oak. I didn't just want bits of softwood, I wanted handcrafted oak. We bought the oak, French oak, and we had the Queen's carpenters come and do. When Windsor Palace burned down, the 2 guys that handcrafted the oak in her palace did my barn. If it's good enough for Liz, it's good enough for me. They nearly broke me. They were on site for nearly 2 years at £50. £50 plus everything else an hour. They nearly broke me. But it was the detail. I didn't want DIY fittings. I wanted Villeroy and Bosch. I wanted fired earth. I wanted the best tiles. I wanted everything to be the best. Italian lighting. I wanted it all to be the best. So remember that when you set your goal, think about how you really want it to look. So important. I want you to remember something as well when you're setting your goals. That the best days of your life lie ahead of you. You've not had the best days of your life. The best days of your life lie ahead of you. The happiest moments are still yet to come. Sometimes we don't think they are, but they will be. The highest income that you'll ever want to earn has not yet happened, even for the big income earners in this room. You haven't earned your highest income yet. The future will just get better and better and better if you design it. So you've got to set your deadlines. Once you've got this goal, you've got it defined. I am now 1 step ahead of myself, because I can't see my slides. So you've now set this goal, you've got it all defined. You know what you want, you've got the detail. Now what you've got to do is you've got to break it down into targets. And the best thing I can say to you right now, this is the perfect time for goal setting. Because right now you should be painting broad brushstrokes for what you want to happen next year. What do you want next year? And paint in the detail. Connect to it emotionally. And start with the end in mind. Start with the end in mind. This time next year, we're sitting in this room, what do you want your life to look like? And when you know that, then you can work it back in quarterly chunks, monthly chunks, weekly chunks, and daily chunks. Because you don't know what you've got to do every day if you don't know what the end goal is by this time next year. And if you don't know what you've got to do every day, you're going to waste time and you can't get time back. What you didn't do yesterday to move your business forward will impact what happens in January and February. Oh, that's a scary thought, isn't it? What you do or don't do today will impact on what happens in January and February, the first quarter. Think about that. Remember I said goal setting isn't just about writing something down, it's about everything that goes around it. Now you've got to identify any potential doubt, any potential challenges that could stop you achieving your goals. Because there will be potential challenges. And you've got to hit them head on. And some of those challenges, I believe, that you're going to have a fear and doubt. Fear. Crippling. Fear stands for false evidence appearing real. What I've noticed over the years, and still for me today, sometimes the things that we think are going to stop us achieving our goals never materialise. And those things we didn't even think about can bite us in the butt. But all of us have got fears. And our fears are basically hung around failure. And often we're in an environment where it's not conducive to success. Sometimes we've got partners who don't support us. Sometimes we've got family who don't support us. And if we have that environment, it's not conducive to being successful. I'm working with a girl right now who's so much potential, so many inequalities. And yet in her home life, she has a partner who every day tells her she's useless, worthless, never amount to anything. And I can relate to that because for 10 years in my marriage, I had 10 years of mental abuse. 10 years of somebody saying to me, you can't, you won't, you're not worth it, you're not this, you're not that, you're not the other. Weeks of not speaking to me, silence in the relationship. Mental bullying was unbelievable. So you can imagine when I came into Reverend, my self-esteem was about this big because of all the crap that had gone on in the past. Fears don't inherently have them because of what happened in the past. Really, if you think about it, it's because of any situation that's happened in the past. If we dump that, then we're okay to move forward. But we have to get to a point where we're big enough to dump the past. Because you can't influence the past. All you can do is learn from it and move on. But you've got to dump it. Because it will not serve you in the future. I remember when I left my husband, when I plucked up the courage to go, with those two little boys and nothing, 2 bags, nothing. And when he said to me, you'll never amount to much and I have no respect for you, for 18 months I was in that state. And then I set the goal. Don't you talk to me like that anymore. I got rid of the fear. I got rid of the doubt that I had in myself because of my past experiences, and I went to work with a vengeance because I had a goal I was emotionally connected to. And I can tell you, when my bonus check came in for the month, and it was more than my ex-husband earned in a year, I did a happy dance around the kitchen. I ran down my mirror, and I said, I've done it. I have done it. I just have a check bigger than my ex-husband earned in a year, and I'm going to ram it down his throat right now. Come on, let's go do it. And you know what he said to me? Don't do it. I said, what? I had waited all this time to build a business where I can say, swivel on that sucker. And you're saying to me, don't do it? She said, Jayne, don't do it. I said, why? And she said, because he could come back to you for maintenance. I said, you're absolutely right, I won't do it. But I know he knows. Swivel on that sucker. And I watched the movie Pretty Woman where she goes in to the dress shop and they look her up and down and ignore her. And then she goes back looking gorgeous and they walk in and she walks in and she says, big mistake, big mistake. That's what I say to my husband every day. Big mistake. But that's because I got rid of all my fears, all my doubts, and I started believing in myself. And I want to give you all permission, ladies, gentlemen. Whatever you have in the past that might be holding you back from going forward, leave it. Leave it in this room today. And when you go out there, leave it in here. And say to yourself, I can, I will, I must, and I'm one hell of a cool person, because you are, each and every one of you, are special, are unique, are amazing, warm, loving, caring individuals that have the potential to lead others to achieve greatness. And when you start believing that, everything will change. Start believing it. All of you are amazing. You need to identify the knowledge that you need in order to be successful. And that's so important. You need to be a student, and I commend every one of you for being here this morning, giving up your time to come and learn. Because as I said earlier, if we share one idea, one sentence, one thought that enables you to walk out of this room, become a manager, become a senior manager, become a chairman's bonus qualifier, to be the architect of your own life, and today is a good day. But today must not be seen in isolation. You need to read every single day. And you need to go back and reread books that maybe you read a month ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, because today you're not the same person as you were when you came to the last event here. You need to be curious about the knowledge you need to be successful. There is only 8 skill sets you need to learn to achieve your goals, but you need to learn them. And you need to focus on being a good student. You can get rich or you can get lucky. I don't want to get lucky, I want to get rich. And I want to get rich by contributing to others, by being the best I can be. And you don't become the best you can be unless you will embrace being a student. To achieve something you've never had before, you've got to do something you've never done before. And in order to become the person you want to become, the life you want to live, then you've got to embrace. With our mentors, with our uplines, downlines, crosslines. We need to have people who believe in us. We need to share our goals and dreams with people that say, you can do it, I believe in you. And if you don't believe in yourself, borrow the belief of your upline. Let them believe in you while you're working on believing in yourself. Everything changes when you dump the baggage. That I will promise you. Stay away from negativity. We've all had negative people in our lives. They will not serve you in going forward. The sadness is, ladies and gentlemen, that family, friends, people that you have in your life right now, a lot of them are waiting for you to fail. That may be a bit harsh, but they are. Because when you step out of the ordinary, which is the box that you are in, your average job, your average business, living your average life, with your average holiday, driving your average car, to your friends you're safe. Because you're all more alike than you are different. When you step out of that and you say, I am going to be different, I am not prepared to live a life of mediocrity anymore, you unbalance the equilibrium. Suddenly you make them look at their own lives, but they're not as brave as you. They won't step out and come join you. These are the people that say no, that laugh at you, that reject you, tell you it will never work, tell you you will never amount to anything. And you know what? If you're not careful, you'll believe them. I've just got 2 words to say to that. Stop it. Do not believe in people that don't believe in you. Do not take advice from people that will not empower you, lift you, nurture you, tell you you can achieve everything that you set your mind to. It's a tough journey to the top, made only tougher by people who surround you and negative. Get them out of your life. Sometimes that means that we have to maybe mix with different people. Maybe the friends that we have today are not the friends that are going to serve you well on your journey to success. I know that John's best friend is still as negative today about Forever as he was when we first joined. His life is exactly the same as it is today as it was 20 years ago, and as of course isn't, but he's still negative about it. We don't see him very often. My brother told me it would never work. So I said to him, watch me. When I began to make some success, he said, you're not showing any visible signs of success. When I got my first brand new Mercedes, when I bought my first nice house, he said it would never last. He wouldn't even use the product. And he needs it. I love your brother dearly, but we've agreed that we will never talk about Forever when we're together. can't get rid of my brother. So we have an agreement. But the other people in my life that did not serve my decision, who didn't support me because they loved me, I've had to part company with. And I'm sad that their lives haven't moved on. So choose the people you hang out with wisely. They say that your life, the sum total of your life, is the equal of the 6 people you hang out with most. So I'm going to give you a red warning. If the 6 people that you hang out with most are all broke, change your mates. And I will share something with you, because I had a bit of a paradigm shift a couple of weeks ago when I was asked to speak at the Eric Wally training. Took me way out of my comfort zone, way out. I felt like a brand new FBO all over again. I was freaked out at this because I took it so responsibly. I was so responsible for this. I put time and energy. I practiced. It was the most incredible feeling. But you know what was the most incredible feeling for me? Being at the back of the stage in the green room with all the other 7-figure income earners, people that think like me, behave like me, are going on the same kind of journey as me, and it was the most liberating experience ever. So who do you mix with? And do they liberate you? And are they taking you on your